You're listening to 4CRB's interviews and talkback series.
I'd like to welcome to the microphone this Thursday morning Supreme Court Judge David Ashton Lewis.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for all the listeners, the support you give us, because we can't do this without you. And I particularly want to bring out, and I'm happy to bring anyone out, but these are the only two I know. I want to bring out Lynn, thank you for listening, and my beautiful son Somerset. He's sitting in Heathrow Airport waiting now to go on a flight to Ireland because his cousin is in the Wallabies. And he's going to go to Ireland to watch the Wallabies get smashed.
It could very well be true, absolutely.
And then they come and play England. They might win that one. And they play, I think, Wales. I don't know. But again, he's doing it. He's over there for 4 weeks to watch his cousin play through this.
Nice.
What's it called? It's not the Lions, because the Lions are when Scotland, England, Wales, Ireland all combined.
It's just rugby union. It's not the World Cup, though, is it?
No, I know it's not the World Cup. So I've spoken to him this morning, and he said, Dad, I'm sitting in Heathrow, but I can get 4CRB.
That's great.
Why? Again, it really annoys me, because he says, I love hearing Colin, Dad.
Oh, stop it.
No, he does.
Maybe he's sick of you.
Now, that might be close to the truth. Yes.
Well, we've had a very, very big thing happen very, very recently, only last night in the United States, and we have a brand new president. I've heard characterizations that the Antichrist has come to the presidency, and I've also heard characterizations that a saviour has been returned to the presidency. I'm sure it's going to be somewhere in between, or it might be to those extremes. Well, we're just going to be sitting back and watching and seeing what does actually occur.
Well, isn't it tragic? You know, I mean, I don't mean to be rude to the uneducated or the unknowing, but Donald Trump simply cannot do 90% of what the people say. He's the Antichrist, he's Adolf Hitler, he's going to turn it into a dictatorship. One, he can't do it because he's bound by the Constitution. Now, if he then says, well, we're going to overthrow that Constitution, he's got to deal with virtually up to half of the population of the United States who would say, no, we're just not going to have it. One of the things I've always liked about Donald Trump is that he doesn't speak like politicians. Now, some of his speech is crude, is stupid.
Yes, that's probably
like
that's
eating
fair.
babies and this.
That's
but
fair.
What he does do is he speaks to the heart of not just the working class or whatever. He speaks to the heart of you, Colin. I know the conversation where he speaks to the heart of me, because politicians speak is so tedious. And I'll give you an example of that. We see Anthony Albanese being pilloried because of his relationship with the former head of Qantas, Alan Joyce, in getting upgrades. Well, I don't see anything wrong in that. If he can get upgrades, good luck to him. Now, naturally, his position as Prime Minister would upgrade him now, but probably with him it goes from business class to first class on long trips. I'm flying out to Fiji on Saturday, and I'm flying business class because the government is paying for it. And because it's a short flight...
Did you get an upgrade?
I know I was booked into business class. These are some of the perks of being
and
a
as you
Supreme
say,
Court judge.
most of us would put our hand up for an upgrade if someone offered it.
Miss Bridget McKenzie goes on the attack, and she's speaking away on how bad it is, and what do we find out? She's had 19 upgrades herself.
That's right.
So you feel...
It's the old glass houses shouldn't throw stones.
Mr. Albanese, can you all just move beyond this useless tirade and get on? And I think one of the things I like about Donald Trump, although he's crude and he's quite embarrassing at times, is that he speaks directly to people. And I watched his, it was about an hour, victory speech last night. It was pretty poor. You know, he said that America needs to be healed.
It was unscripted, and he waffled all over the page.
He's not the most articulate of men, but it was probably pass. I would have given him a pass if I was his English master. But then I listened this morning to Kamala Harris speak. Now, let's go back first. She didn't speak last night, and do you remember Hillary Clinton did the same thing, and Clinton was viewed for months, oh, she's got the presidency in the bag. And when the truth, that is, when the people spoke on that night, she didn't have the numbers. Donald Trump did. So she disappeared and didn't speak till the next day. Now, given that the left were all, oh, look, Kamala Harris has got this in the bag, and then you'd listen to certain right-wing news, oh, Donald Trump's got it in the bag. So we'll save that criticism for the disgraceful failure of journalism.
Oh, I agree.
Oh, and we'll come to that. So what happens? She stands up, not herself, but through her speech deputy or speech maker, and he says, no, we're going to look at everything closely overnight, and she will speak in the morning. Well, by the time he left, Donald Trump had 270 electoral college votes. That gives him the presidency, even if counting later votes had brought Kamala Harris up. Well, she couldn't have come to 270 because there's not enough to be double. Now, this morning when I looked, he had 308 or 12 electoral college votes. Her best was 266. Now, she did come out this morning, and I think wanting to look at every count and see was just a furphy. It was to gather herself from dealing with, and her party, from the defeat that they thought was not going to happen. So she comes out. Now, I heard her. I've listened to the speech twice. Now, I know there will be people listening out here who are of a particular persuasion in politics, and I heard commentary. What a brilliant speech it was. How she really showed. It's a pity she didn't speak like that when she was on the campaign trail. All right, now I'll give you my view. Her speech was like the speech that a president of a university gives to a graduating class. It was all about keep the spirit, move forward, contribute to life. Not once did she pay honour to the majority of American voters who voted for her opponent. Not once. And not once. I understand she'd spoken to Donald Trump beforehand, and I heard that the phone conversation was brief. Now, see, this is the state of modern politics. Her speech was not appropriate for a party conceding defeat. And it was not appropriate. And yet we have people in our society who say, what a brilliant speech. I would say to them, it was anything but that.
Look, I find we all seem to get lost in the emotion of it. We get lost in, and we lose sight of the original preface. And the original preface is that you're there to manage the state, the entire country, or the council area on behalf of the public. All people, not just the ones who voted for you. So the point being there is that the other side is there to do that exact same thing. Yep. They're there to say, well, we don't agree with you that this might be a better idea. Yep. But it ends up being almost polar opposites, or we hate you and you hate us.
Yes, and I think it's moved to that because I heard one commentator saying during the counting last night that political views have become in America and in Australia that, you know, years ago, my father, we lived in Sir Robert Menzies' Kooyong seat, the longest-serving Australian Prime Minister, Liberal. My father, since the Second World War, only ever voted Labor. And he would have friends and they would go to different functions and they would be different sides of the spectrum and they'd tease each other, josh each other. Never meant to loss of friendships, but I heard a commentator saying, in polling today, people simply will not mention. So you've got two good friends, and one is Democrat, one is Republican. They just won't talk. Because to say, look, I'm a Trump supporter, means the end of the friendship. Now, when politics in a free and democratic society and the shades of it, right of centre or left of centre, become like that, we have lost our concept of independence of thought,
Yes.
freedom of thought, and democratic intercourse.
Look, and we even see it at sporting events nowadays. Soccer's a great
yes.
example of that. We absolutely hate the other side to the point
Yes.
that we actually want to be violent. What?
I mean, tell me, how many people who are keen rugby union followers, and I remember this happening under Steve Waugh in the Australian cricket team. The All Blacks, I've had people say to me, I'm so happy now to see the All Blacks are being beaten by the Irish and by whoever, because I got so sick of no one could beat the All Blacks. Yes, you do get sick of it, but you think...
You've got to appreciate the athleticism. You've got to appreciate the skill.
Steve Waugh's team, over 12 years, won 16 matches. That's test matches. And even I got sick of it. You know, I'm a proud Australian, and I'd certainly love seeing us beat England. But to see us get beaten by England was okay. And so what we've got to really redo in our society is graceful losing, graceful winning. Now, poor old Donald, he's not the most graceful winner, and certainly Kamala was no graceful loser.
Look, I'd like to focus on the role of the media in all of this, and then you touched on it before with Anthony Albanese and the upgrades, and now we found a Liberal candidate or a Liberal member who's taken some upgrades. And again, we shouldn't be throwing stones if we've actually done it ourselves. But again, we're not focusing on the things that actually have meaning. Who cares?
Right.
We've got power problems in this country that have been here since the 80s, and they're getting closer and closer to a tipping point where we're paying an absolute screaming fortune, where budgets are being tipped out in winter, where we've got to give everybody a bonus so they can pay their power bill.
Isn't this ridiculous?
And we're arguing over, and we're pointing fingers at flight upgrades.
Absolutely. Now, and you've got Chris Bowen, who's just arrogantly dismisses anything other than renewables. Well, that's his right. He is the Minister for Energy and everything, but he can't enter into a debate with nuclear. All they can do is defame and diminish Peter Dutton and anyone who supports nuclear, and that's a bad sign for the way we're going.
Look, that seems to be the case. We're just going to take the polar opposite opinion of the other side of the fence. But going back to the media, and we can even take a look at the American election here. All we heard through all of this, even here in this country, is look at Trump, the rubbish that comes out of his mouth. I heard parallels between Nazi Germany and Donald Trump, all sorts of things like that. And then even just 5 minutes before Donald Trump took the stage last night to say, hey, I've won, and it was a clear win, CNN was almost seething, going, no, Camilla's on the, she'll come. And I'm thinking to myself, how are you delivering the facts?
Well, where are you getting your information from?
You're not delivering the facts. You're delivering an opinion, hoping you can sway people's thoughts and opinions throughout the day, maybe even votes. And that is not the role of the media.
It really depends upon government. If you won't do it yourself, we'll have to put into place legislation that no journalist can speak in terms that show they are a supporter of the right or the left. And if they do that, they will lose their job.
The old idiom was, deliver the facts and allow the listener or the viewer to form their own opinion.
Well,
and that's the point. But we're now delivering opinions.
And a lot of that opinion is ill-informed.
Sure.
I heard this morning, a Labor minister making statements that on television that were constitutionally and simply untrue and simply wrong.
Yes.
And yet she is a minister in the current Albanese government.
Look, I've tossed this one around for a while. Parliamentary privilege really does allow them to say anything that they damn well please, whether it be right, wrong, or indifferent. And so it should be.
Definitely.
But should we wave that one away and actually get them to qualify what they're actually saying?
Look, I keep parliamentary privilege, Colin, in the chamber. You do need to be open. You do need to say and accuse someone of being a pedophile, because it then allows that person to do, like with this Bridget McKenzie, you're accusing me of a pedophile. Now, before the Speaker's chair, lay out the evidence you've got. Oh, it's a left-wing newspaper, or it's the ABC, or it's something not sufficient. Lay out. Now, I can't sue you for defamation. It's in the chamber. And no doubt people who listen to the radio could run off and say, oh, well, X is a pedophile. Now, that's why the Speaker, who is like a Supreme Court judge, he controls the House, and it's up to him to say, I want you to withdraw that statement you have made because you haven't backed it up with clearly incontrovertible evidence. But again, we've got speakers in our parliaments that are so weak that don't control the parliament, don't control the behaviour. How many times have you heard the Speaker say, I'm warning you, the member for X, I'm warning you, the member for X, I'm warning you, the member for X. Well, how about naming them? Because once you name them in the parliament, they're in trouble. But it doesn't happen.
Yes.
And so, again, we need, as we've talked with youth crime and everything, and I don't want to sound like an old fuddy-duddy. I love my country and I grew up with all the freedoms, but we really need to look at ourselves. We need to look at our politicians, and we who put them there need to be saying, we don't expect you to be perfect. We don't expect you to be right all the time. But we do expect you to be civil,
yes,
to be courteous, to know whatever you're... And if you know nothing about the development of parliamentary democracy over the years of the 1200 up to 1600, that's fine, because you're a member for a country seat and you're a bit of a cocky. You know, you're a station owner. Well, that's all right. That station owner should be able to be elected. This is a democracy. But that station owner should not be attributed with knowledge of which he or she simply knows nothing about. And so what's the responsibility of that station owner? Go and get because you all have parliamentary research assistants. There's a debate coming up or a thing coming up on this bill. Would you go and do the research and brief me on it, please? But I sometimes listen to these members speak, and they're good, decent people. But you think, good heavens, what do you know?
So yes, going back to the role of the media, and again, if government were to get involved with that, it'd be seen as censorship. It'd be seen as silencing their ability to be unbiased, even though I think they clearly are in certain circumstances. Delivering opinions was never meant to be the role of the media. It was meant to be delivering facts. And we can see it now in the American presidential campaign. We could see it in the Queensland government campaign. I could not believe the amount of barrage of the Labor Party. And now that it's all over and the Liberals are in, we're all quiet on the Western Front. Now let's focus on the Labor Party down there in the federal end of the world. They're next. And
you're right.
And that's where we are.
You're totally right. And look, Stephen Miles has been just elected yesterday, I think, the leader of the opposition. Now, I've met people who absolutely detest him. I've met people who think he's the greatest thing, as you said, since the Second Coming. Well, he's neither of those. He's a man. He's a Queenslander, and he's made a commitment to serving Queensland, and he's made a commitment to do it through basically the left of centre party called the Queensland Labor Party. That's fine.
Yep.
That's what democracy is. What I've found over my years, whether it be local, state or federal, and I know there'll be people out there now about to pull their hair out and disagree with me, but I think that one of the problems is the left always take a moral high ground that they're not qualified to take. They always claim they're the parties of justice, fairness, equity and inclusion. Well, when you look at Bob Menzies, or you look at Ronald Reagan, or you look at whoever there was. So Ronald Reagan did not believe at all in justice, fairness. Of course he did. He just came at it, to it, in a different way. So the left now have been usually in the benefit of having the majority of the media supportive. And I was interested to listen to CNN, MSNBC, and American ABC, clearly supporters of the Democrat Party, listening to their people speak last night, jumping around, making excuses, either saying, oh no, Kamala will still get up, and then when she didn't get up, making these dreadful statements like Kamala Harris's deputy speechwriter said, today we start the task of protecting American freedom from against the Republican Party. Now, I would have sacked her if I was Kamala. I said, you can't say that.
Yes.
And again, so what are we talking about? It shows the bias of media. And for me, the majority of the bias is to the left. There are bias to the right. And I feel I want to get them both together and say, step out of areas you're not entitled to be in. You are to report the facts. Stop giving us your opinion. Your opinion is not worth two bob.
Yes.
Or get special experts in to be interviewed on certain shows, like professors of politics on the right.
If you ask me, the two statements that need to be banned are,
Yes.
Who's to blame and should the government be doing more? Both those
Yes,
statements
that's
need to
good.
be deleted
Yes.
from any sort of journalism.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Who's to blame?
Yep.
And should the government be doing more? And why does it happen? Because the majority of the electorate, how many times we've talked about this? Well, we talk about a topic and we discuss it and we say, so what's to be done? And you hear, well, it's the government's responsibility. You know, we hear
Well,
it.
it's supposedly their responsibility to raise our children nowadays. Oh, geez, the school teachers, schools should be doing more.
It's the school's responsibility.
Oh,
I
dear.
know. Yeah. So anyway, we have, or the world has, a new leader of it, and it might be helpful in dealing with people like Xi Jinping, Vladimir Putin, Hamas, Hezbollah, Kim Jong-un. Kim Jong-un.
Yep.
It might be good to have someone who is prepared to say
No.
no.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. I don't think he'll put up with much
Yeah.
rubbish. But again, this is one of those things now, after we've heard all of this lead up for X amount of time now, to see actually what transpires.
Well, he's only the second person ever to be elected to a second term after a period out of... first one was Grover Cleveland in 1886 to 1889,
Wow.
so 1890, and then McKinley defeated him, and McKinley was assassinated, and the vice president became the president, forgotten his name, and then the next election was 1899, Grover Cleveland came back. Now, Donald Trump is the second only to do that.
All right, David, we've
Yes.
got 1 minute summing up, and then you're taking a little bit of a break, aren't you, while you're heading
Yes,
back
look,
to...
am I allowed to say
Yes,
it?
go
Should
for
I
it.
say? And unfortunately for listeners, although probably for many, I'm going to Fiji on Saturday because I've been asked to sit on a presidential commission, the equivalent of a royal commission, into certain matters in the Fiji government, and I won't be handing down a decision, or I have to hand my report, it's not a decision, with recommendations to the President by the 31st of January 2025, that is next year. Now, given the nature of this, I may have to seek an extension of it because the commission's been set down to be from Monday. I fly to Fiji on Saturday, and I will be living there then all November, all December, all January, and I may have to extend it. So I would like to take this opportunity to thank all the listeners who are nice to me and wish you all a very Merry Christmas, even though it's still some time away. And I look forward to coming back in early February. And so I wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and always, and my son, and I know a number of others who say, oh yeah, you're all right, Dad, or you're all right, David, but it's Colin we like. And,
Stop it.
I'm being up-stumped by my good friend Colin, but look, I'm sure he will run the station as well as he does, and even better, and I look forward to being back with you around early February in the new year.
Well, thank you very much, David, for your time this morning. We look forward to you coming back in February.
Thank you.
You've been listening to 4CRB's interviews and talkback series. Support local online content and become a financial supporter today at 4CRB.com.